Hi, welcome back to Wallflowers. So, what we've been talking about for quite a while on the channel, especially over Saturday evening on the live streams and throughout, the food rationing has begun in the UK. I think it actually began on Monday. We have so far, I think it's 4 supermarkets. So that's the Asda, which in other countries is Walmart, Morrison's, Aldi and Tesco. So the food rations have begun on vegetables first. So it's tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, lettuce and broccoli. So it's now been announced that we can buy 3 of these items, 3 each of tomatoes, 3 each of cucumbers, etc. But no more. So if you have a larger family that you need to feed and you need more than 3 of those items, if you have a specific use, if you're buying supermarket items to preserve, etc., or you're having a party, you're having a big meal, whatever it is, you're not allowed to buy more than 3 items of each specific one listed. So we've been saying a while about how we're going to feel the food shortages, how it's going to affect us, basically living within the dictatorship, etc. So it's here, it's now. The food shortages have begun. Yes, it's primarily on 5 items in the supermarkets, but I personally feel that that will be extended and we will be restricted to what we buy across the board, I think, pretty soon. This is just merely the beginning. So food rationing in the UK, sorry, bear with me. I've just got back from the dentist, so good news is I'm due to have all the treatment I need soon, so that's one positivity we can take from this. So basically, the retail experts predict it could last for weeks, and the National Farmers Union said production of Tom's cucumbers are at a lowest level since records begun in 1985. And the government are saying they can't control the weather in Spain or Morocco in the winter months. So they can't control the weather in Spain or Morocco. Some of us beg to differ and some of us feel that this weather is already being controlled, but I suppose that's a completely separate video. So basically they're saying 90%, just bear with me, the UK imports 90% of tomatoes, 90% of lettuce from Spain or Morocco. So instead of restricting us
in the winter months,
instead of restricting us, why haven't we got and had in the run up to this farmers growing them in polytunnels inside, etc.? Why hasn't this provided us with what we need? Why are we now in this position? We know people like Bill Gates have been buying up land all over the world basically in order to sow the GMO crops, which can be sown and harvested any time of the year. But yes, there will be GMO seeds and GMO crops which don't produce true seed, or any seed indeed, if I'm right. So you cannot germinate your own seeds from that food and grow your own from them. So at this point, yes, we should already be growing some food. We should be sowing our seeds at this point and making sure that we have enough. Those that haven't yet ever grown anything or haven't grown for a while, this is the time now to plan what you need, what your family is going to need vegetable wise, salad wise, especially tomatoes, lettuce, cucumbers. You know, we don't personally use a lot of cucumbers, but we've already sown the lettuce, we've already sown the some of the tomatoes. And you have to think, right, okay, I can sow lots and lots of seeds, but have you got the space for it, as well as growing? Will it be carrots soon? Will it be potatoes soon? What things can you preempt that we might be restricted on pretty soon? And grow at least some of those. What space do you have? Can you grow in tubs if you haven't got the space to have raised beds or a stretch of land? Can you grow in tubs? Can you do both? Can you have your raised beds and grow extras in the tubs? Once you've grown them, and if they're all produced at the same time and harvested at the same time, can you preserve them to last you a longer period of time? For instance, we know how to can, we know how to dehydrate. We're learning to can, should I say. We know how to dehydrate, so things like the carrots can be dehydrated, we can keep those longer. The onions can be dehydrated, they can be canned. Potatoes, we can can the potatoes, we can dehydrate the potatoes, but these methods have to be practiced, and we have to have the shelf life to actually, the space to store the food once we've preserved it. So these things are what we need to preoccupy ourselves with as we're actually growing the food. Yes, we can buy an extra, but again, you need the space for it. Can you buy tins? Can you buy tins of tomatoes? Can you buy, you know, you can't buy tins of lettuce. The broccoli, grow the broccoli, grow the lettuce. The lettuce you can grow all year round. You can grow it on your window ledge. You can grow it outside in the garden. As I say, cucumber to me is a desired taste, so those that really enjoy the cucumbers, they need to be planned now, sown and prepared for them. You can start doing them in cups, plastic cups, and you can start putting them on your window ledge. They'll grow a big long stem, and you need them to be a certain height before you plant them out. But again, you've got to make sure not to plant them out until a week or so after your last frost dates, because we know this time of year we'll actually get really bad winds, or we will get a frost. So, you know, we need those vegetables, we need those produce that we're not going to be able to get shortly. You know, the restrictions are only down to 3 an item. People who are just living in a couple or a small family will find that no problem at the moment. Bigger families will, bigger institutes will. But if that goes down to 1 a week, 1 a month, or the rationing becomes even more severe, you won't have it as readily available as you normally would. You know, we tend to eat tomatoes nearly every day, whether they're grilled, part of a meal, etc. So although I've managed to store some tomatoes, I have some lovely sun-dried tomatoes that I've dehydrated, and I have tomatoes in jars that I've water bathed. Now I will have to readdress that and see if those water bathed tomatoes fit the acidity and if they're okay for me to store long term, because I've had some of those there for well over a year now, so I have to double check and make sure if they're fit for consumption, and if not, I have to address that by canning some more. So for me, it's a personal learning curve of how to store preserved food if and when this situation gets more severe, which I think it will. So most of the fruit and veg in the winter times is coming from Spain and North Africa. and because they've experienced the cold temps, we're being told, heavy rain and flooding, as well as the ferries being cancelled, they're struggling to import the food. So one gentleman, I can't remember the exact story, source where it came from, but he actually said it was taking 80 hours for him to get the truck in with the fresh produce on it. Basically it wasn't worth the while in the trade of the money that they're getting back to take 80 hours to bring that produce into the country. So then they won't continue doing that. So it's going to become less and less and less for the availability. We have to take this seriously, and we have to, especially in the UK. I don't know if it's going to hit other countries yet, or, you know, what other, shall we call it excuses? Should we call it reasoning? I really don't know what terminology to put on. Plans. As we know, food stores in other countries such as America are being burnt down. Chicken stores, even steel places now, they're all being burnt down. There's tragedies happening everywhere, and it all seems to be affecting the food source and our availability to it. So this is something that has to be really taken seriously. You know, people have prepped for a long time, but people have been saying for the last 12 months or so, should they stop prepping? When's enough enough? If you think now, 12 months food storage is an awful lot. You really do need to think where you're going to keep it, how you're going to keep it preserved properly, how you're going to get your hands on it to preserve it if this situation is starting now. So it's accountability for ourselves, really. No one's going to come in and look after us, look at different things. Take Flint, for example, for the water. You know, they deliver a pallet of water. That wasn't enough for the community. That wasn't enough. And when people just get pallets of food or pallets of water delivered to a certain area, greed will take place. First come, first serve. People will take 6, 8, 10, whatever they can fit in their vehicle and take that away. So if it come to where we were being provided with something, how do you know you're going to get your share? How do you know your share is going to be sufficient to get you and your family through? So we really, really have to look at these issues and think, right, no one's coming to save us. And even if they do provide a little, how far is that going to take us? So we need to really evaluate and see how we're going to get through. This isn't a scare story. These food shortages are actually happening. They've started in the UK as from Monday. Yeah, it's only 5 items so far. But let's keep an eye on this. Let's see what else I've written here in my notes. And the funny thing is, the rest of Europe doesn't seem to be affected by these rationing at the moment, these shortages. They seem to be okay. So specifically just affecting us first and foremost, you know, and we seem to be the targets that it's affecting first and foremost. The price hikes, the fuel hikes, the supermarket price hikes, everything here seems to be, let's affect the UK first and then, you know, filter it out to everywhere else. Why are we always first targeted? A lot of fields, excuse me, a lot of fields even locally seem to be barren. You know, we've heard the issues for the last couple of years of the farmers being paid by the government not to grow the goods. Excuses like a shortage of workers. I think I've lost track of the amount of excuses that we've been given really over the last couple of years of why the farmers can't produce. Just locally, we have a lot of farm fields. You know, some used to have a lot of animals, cows, sheep primarily. We've had llamas, we've had different things that we'd see locally that were really good. You know, if the children were in the car or you were out with friends and their children, it was always good to point out the animals, etc. And Mr. Wallflowers and I went for a run yesterday to Formby. For those of you that don't know, it's an area in Liverpool, and we went to browse the charity shops. We didn't really find much, but it was an enjoyable day trip. And we were looking at the farmland on the way out, which we normally do. We try and spot what crops are growing in the fields. And we've known for a long time now that a lot of those fields are barren. You know, you can have fields that they call fallow, that like fallow every 3 years or whatever, but these fields are long-termly and barren. And the animals in them are less and less. So in just over, are we calling it 10 miles? In just over 10 miles to Formby and back, there was 3 fields of sheep, which is next to nothing compared to what it used to be. There was 1 field of horses, and there was 1 field with 1 pig in. There were no cows. There were no cows to be seen at all in a 10-mile radius, which is strange for this area because we used to see a lot of them. We used to see a lot more sheep, a lot more cows, and a lot more pigs. We're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. In the fields, I think I spotted 1 farmer's field, and it was literally the peripheral edge towards the road that had the leaks in, and the rest of the farmer's land was barren. It was just 1 field with leaks in. How many farmers' fields, Mr. Wallflowers, would you think we passed? Over 100? Over 100. I saw 1 field with leaks in. I saw 3 fields with sheep in, 1 field with horses in, and 1 field with 1 pig in. That's over 100 farm fields. It's a scary thing to see. It's a scary thing to see because that's the meat here, you know, and if that's an indication of what's happening in the rest of the country, albeit pretty shortly the rest of the world, I'm not too sure, but I know what's happening here. So I'm a meat eater. That affects me. The lack of meat that's going to be available because of the lack of farmers being able to house those animals is ridiculous. The lack of fields actually growing produce here means if we're not importing it, we're not actually growing our own here, there isn't going to be any. It's an urgent call to grow your own food. It's an urgent call to learn as much as you can. Tend to it. You know, I've grown fruit and vegetables as a hobby really for quite a few years, but this year it's actually going to be a job because we're going to depend on that food. We're literally going to depend on it. If rationing is going to be as big as I think it's going to be, we're going to depend on every item. Now we know you can't sufficiently grow enough in one garden to feed your whole family, so we're still going to have to take the rations. We're still going to have to get as much as we can in, but every little bit that we grow is going to keep us going. Okay, as I say, this isn't fear mongering, this is fact about the rationing here in the UK, and it's a serious factor. Let's see what we can do. Let's advise each other how to grow better food. Let's do the best job we can. Keep smiling, folks, but be determined to make sure that we look after ourselves. Okay, thanks for joining me today, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.